Yeah. Hi everyone. We're live. Can we just do a mic test and see if our volumes are okay and not high or low?
All
Ghada.
right. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3.
Okay, well, someone's gonna comment on it.
When they do what they do.
Yeah. Okay, I will. Oh, I love J-Lo. She's just amazing. She's like my forever mod, and I'm like, yes. I will start with the introduction. Hi guys, it is Sarah, and you're on our third episode of Life After Islam. And if you've watched our episode about on Support Corner, which was previously Advice Corner, my co-host Ghada is now here doing this interview. So the next time she's on Support Corner, you can visit this recording or this podcast again to know a little more about her. So without delaying this, Ghada, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Ghada. If you have not heard of me or not know me, I'm originally from Saudi Arabia, born and raised there. I was born to a very religious Shia family. So I grew up as a minority within sort of a minority. I also had a lot of indoctrination as I grew up, and I'll talk about more about that as we go through in this interview. My family was very religious. Like I wore my hijab when I was 9 because that's what you do when you're a religious person. And after about 26 years of living with my family, living under the rule, I decided that that was it. I left not only, I left the religion years before that, but I left the country and escaped on December 30th, 2014, and I haven't looked back since.
Oh, wow. Just before we get into your story, they still had the male guardianship laws then, did they not?
Yes. The main reason I left was because of the male guardianship law, because that was, and I'll talk about this more as I talk about more about my story. But the thing is, like I no matter what my family says about me, I love my family, and I've always wanted to stay there. All I wanted was some freedom. So when that freedom was never given to me, I decided that that's it. Like I can't live like this. I can't live in a place where I'm always treated as a freaking minor. It's too much.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight Iman's comment. We love you.
Thank you, Iman. That's so nice.
So, okay, well, I really want to know more about how you were raised because I know Shias are a minority in Saudi.
Yes.
And I think we covered on our support corner that Shia books were banned. So they were going like really hardcore on Shia. And it's a predominantly Salafi country, is it not? Yeah, okay.
Super Wahhabi, super Salafi. So the way I grew up, I was born in the very late stretch of the 80s, the very late. So still a millennial. Not that I'm proud of that. But the thing is with my family is that I didn't really know it was Sunni Shia when I was growing up. I didn't find out until probably 5th or 6th grade what the differences were. I just thought we were all Muslim. And again, the only thing I ever knew in my life was Islam. This is my life. Saudi Arabia was the only thing I ever knew, and that's what I thought life was. That's what I thought the world was. When I was, ever since I started, just to give you an idea of how the upbringing was, when I first started speaking, when I was able to speak, my mom decided that the first thing that I should learn is the questions that were to be asked in the grave. You know, who is your God? What is your religion? Who is your prophet, etc. And she would ask me this every single night. Another thing that she would give me is like when other kids would get, bedtime stories, like Little Red Riding Hood or Snow White or whatever it is, I got biblical stories, the stories of ancient prophets, starting from Adam all the way down to our great prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And also because I'm Shia, my mom also added the Imam stories to it. So when I grew older and I was able to read, she bought me like a collection of books, one for the ancient prophets and one for the Imams. And I mean, I thought that this would be the best method to become a more religious person is to read them. And I read them and I continued to read them. And as I grew older and, the hijab at 9 years old, and before that, praying at 7, and all of the going to Muharram every single year. And not just Muharram. Like there's maybe a misconception about Shia that we only mourn for like Hussein in those 10 days of Muharram. It's not that. It's every single imam, whether it's a birth or a death, or in the case of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Eid al-Ghadir, you know? So it's, we celebrated everything you can think of. For 2 months, Muharram and Safar, we would wear black, we would not buy anything. In the very beginning, it was so stringent that we couldn't even chew gum or eat like nuts. Do you know that? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Well, not nuts, but like the gum was,
Mhm.
yeah.
It
We
was
had,
considered an act of showing happiness. You're not supposed to show happiness.
especially the flavored one. We used to get this from Saudi Arabia. Do you know that gum that's like a rock?
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Mastic.
Okay, well, in Swahili we used to call it ubani, and I used to like it, and then I was like, this is dead. It's like
Yeah, it
eating
gives you.
sand.
Yeah, it is. That's
And it gets
maybe.
really hard as well after a while.
Yeah, that's the only thing that was allowed too in
Wow,
where I'm
yeah.
from. Mhm.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
mean, I can totally relate to the whole people thinking that we only cried for Hussein.
oh no, God, no. We
Oh,
did.
we it was
So
like it was like a more it's like it was like a crying. It's like a matricism like
it
fest.
is. So it starts off with Muharram, with the first 10 to 13 days because of Hussein. And then a bit later, I think it's Zain al-Abidin also dies in this
Yeah.
time. I forgot. And then there's Al-Hassan dies during this time. And then the Prophet dies towards the end. That's like how you know it's the end. Well, then there's also the Arba'in in the middle for Hussein. And then afterwards, I mean, there's Fatima to Zahra. Like there's 3 or 4 nights where I don't know which night, you just to choose one of those nights or do all of them and cry for her. And then there's the celebrations. I like the celebrations, but they were
Too much.
so full of bullshit. I think one of the ones that and I didn't start noticing this until after I became an ex-Muslim, after returning and living with my family after college. And I remember one night we were listening to the birth of Zain al-Abidin. um, and the way he was born as a baby. Everything goes into light and everything sees, no, everybody just sees light and it's so bright. And then Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, the baby has been born and it's already in sujood. How? It's a baby!
There was no logic to it. I remember when it was the
Zero.
birthday of Mahdi, we would bake a cake, and I'm like, but why?
Because he's alive.
But yeah, but then at the same time, he's not here. And who is
No,
alive for that many
Allah.
thousand, hundred, like 1400 and something years? Why?
Because Allah brought him, Allah is hiding him for the end of time. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I liked the cake, I liked dressing up, but it had nothing religious in it. Whatever
Why
I
him?
liked was more about how, like, it was just like the happiness regardless of the event. It was just like, oh, we're all dressing up. The girls would
Mhm.
like go and put a lot of makeup, and even if you wear a hijab, you can remove it in the mosque where there are only women. So it was like
Yes.
a fashion parade, really.
So we have Husseyniyat, and so in Saudi Arabia, if you are in a Shia majority area, you are allowed to have mosques. You're allowed to have congregations in the form of like ma'tam or celebration, and you can build Husseyniyat. It starts being a problem if you get out of Shia majority areas. In Shia majority areas, you're not allowed to do anything. And if you are, like, for example, sometimes my family would. My mother, for example, loves to do the celebrations every year, whether it's Eid al-Hadir or Ma'tam of some sort. She has to make sure that our neighbors don't find out. And the way we do it is that when you tell people to come over to our place, not to come in droves, and when they leave, they don't leave in droves. So make it look like it's just it's just a get together. We're just here and we're trying to get together and have dinner with each other, but we're not really like doing a religious ceremony. And the thing is, when they found out in my area, there was a lady that was caught because she had readings in her house, and they didn't really arrest her, but they made her sign that she would never do it again, and she was caught 3 times.
Wow.
Mhm.
When we were in Malaysia, now I would barely go to the mosque because it was far away, and I really didn't like being around a lot of Tanzanians or also like many people that I knew were mostly Shias who were Tanzanians. I just liked my own space. I liked like that living abroad and being an international student area. So in Malaysia it's the same thing, that you're not allowed to proselytize Shia Islam.
Yes.
So even having any of that means that the police can raid in and you either get fined, jail, or they'll end it. So
And the same thing. So for Saudi, in Saudi, for example, like whenever either before Saddam or after Saddam, or before the whole, I think they were not allowing Saudis to go to Iran for a while. Now I'm pretty sure it's also the same thing. But whenever Shia would come back from those trips into Saudi Arabia, or even if they come in from Bahrain, knowing that those people probably went to Iran or Iraq or Syria or any of the countries that would have Shia books, turba, which is the thing that we do sujood on, or anything that is religious, Shia related, mainly like books, pictures, whatever. They would rate them. They would go over only the Shia cars, only the Shia that are coming out, and they make them open all of their luggage and take out anything that they think is inappropriate. And this has happened for years and years and years. It's like the only thing I hear about every time. Like, oh yeah, so and so went to Iran, and on the way back, they stopped them and took everything that they bought. So yeah, it's not only illegal. Like if they do catch you either selling books or trying to, like you said, it's a big ass no in Saudi. Essentially,
yeah.
like trying to say, hey, become kafir. Because in Saudi Arabia, I mean, I don't know if it's still valid, but there was a fatwa in the 90s where it was told that Shia were considered non-Muslim. I think like 12, I forgot, 12 scholars signed on it. It was a big fatwa. And it's still, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's still around, but it used to be the thing.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've gathered, like we used to fear Wahhabis because from what we were told, and I don't know if you had the same thing, that for a Wahhabi, if they kill Shias, they go to heaven. So
Oh,
um,
God.
it's like killing a kafir and somebody who does shirk.
So
You're
in
gonna go to heaven.
So when I was in 6th grade, I remember this. So in 5th and 6th grade is when I started finding out that there is a difference between me and everybody else I went to school with. I went to a private school because my dad worked for Aramco, and he got a discount to take all of us to Aramco school, to like private
Yeah.
school. The private school still taught the Saudi curriculum. We were not taught like in English or in abroad, or some kind of different curriculum. We still took the Saudi curriculum, the religion. And that's the thing about Saudi. We took Quran,
Yeah.
Tawheed, Fiqh, Hadith, Tafsir, and part of Quran was also Tajweed and memorizing and all of
Yeah.
that. And it's so much. It's so much, and it's all Wahhabi Islam, essentially. Like all of the tafsir is Wahhabi tafsir. All of the hadith is hadiths that are, Wahhabi approved. All of the stringent, like fiqh and tawheed things are all like kufr, shirk, kufr, haram, la yajuz. Everything is like that. So it's super extreme. And that's
Um,
what we took. So in school, because we studied Wahhabi in school, but we're Shia. So the thing is that they would tell us like, oh, what you learn in school is just for school. Memorize it, put it in an exam, get out of the other ear. What we teach you at home, that's the real Islam. Ahl al-Bayt.
yeah. Yeah, it's always like that. I studied in a Shia majority school, and it was girls only. And I remember we had a Sayyida, and a Sayyida is somebody who descends from Muhammad's family, woman specifically. And she was from Iran, and she was talking. She didn't realize that she was in a Shia majority school, but there were a big population of Sunnis as well. And she went like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, yeah, yeah, Shias are the real Muslims," and everybody was like, "What?
I mean,
Can't say that."
we are sort of.
Yeah, we're the real ex-Muslims. Yeah, no, and then, everybody was just like, "What?" Like, there was a big fiasco, and I'm like, "I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why people were even talking about it. I thought like, ah, yeah, Shia, Sunni, like different things, but that doesn't mean they're going to hell. They just choose to be in a different one. They were just born
Yeah.
in it." I
I
didn't
mean,
realize it was such a massive difference until in my later years.
I didn't start noticing the differences. Like even now, as an ex-Muslim, it's small things when it comes. They have a lot more in common than they have, you know, differences. They still don't like the kuffar. They still don't like apostates. They still don't like women. I mean, it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't start noticing the difference until I think fifth or sixth grade when people started asking me, "Are you Sunni or Shia?" And in my class back in fifth and sixth grade, up until seventh grade, I was the only Shia in the whole entire class,
Wow.
and that was not very good. I got a little bit bullied, and not very. If I don't like thinking about that part, but then I left the school, went to another school where I was able to meet other Shia people that were not my family, and that was bizarre. Like I've
Mhm.
never met Shia that were not my family, and
Wow.
I mean because I thought that all of Shia were super duper religious until I met the Shia that were not religious, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this girl, she doesn't wear hijab, and her mom is totally okay with it, and this girl sometimes doesn't pray, and her mom is okay with it. How come I have to do all of this?
Yeah. Wait, so you mentioned hijab. So I'm
Mhm.
guessing like there were people in Saudi Arabia whose families were okay with them not wearing hijab, but they had to wear the loose
Baba,
clothing.
yeah. They
Yeah.
still had to do that. So but the thing is with school, you don't really have a choice
Yeah.
because in back then at least, if you were in a school that taught the government curriculum, so they were still regulated by the Ministry of Education. Girls from first grade to third grade don't have to wear abaya or cover. From fourth grade to sixth grade, you have to wear abaya at least to cover up. And then anything above that, not only do you have to wear abaya, you have to cover your. Not only do you have to wear a hijab, you have to cover your whole entire face.
Wow.
And if you don't, they give you one time. They give you a warning, and then they
Uh-huh.
give you a second warning, and the third time, essentially, it's not you don't get suspended, but you have to like I don't know what they're called in English. Like you have to sign that you will not do this again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a
Yeah.
form, like a disciplinary form or
Yes, a
something.
disciplinary form. Like no, I will not. And
Yeah.
you also get insulted by the teachers that because there's always a teacher that stands right by the door to make sure that all the girls are covered up, or outside to make sure that the girls when they go out they don't just open up.
Mhm.
They will come and harass you in class. Like so, I remember one time I went out and I didn't cover my face, but still wore hijab like this.
Yeah.
And she came to my class, pulled me out, and asked me, "You even wear hijab? Why
What?
are you asking me this?" Like, well, the other day I saw you and you weren't covering your face. I'm like, okay, sorry, I'll cover my face next time.
How old
Jesus.
were you?
This was high school.
So I'm guessing just under the age of 15 then.
I was 15, I think. I was
15,
like
okay.
15 or 16. I think that's how old I
Yeah.
was. But it doesn't matter. It's like once you reach middle school, you have to cover up.
Wow. And this is a
Mhm.
private school.
Yes, but it's still regulated by the Ministry of Interior. If you're regulated by the Ministry of Interior, you still have to follow the cited curriculum, and you still have to follow the Ministry of Education's rules and regulations when it comes to schools. So girls are not allowed to put on any makeup. They're not allowed to have nail polish. They can't dye their hair. They can't cut it too short. What else? Can't have long nails. Can't have my hair looking like this. It has to be pulled back. It's so
Wait,
certain
but
colors that you can wear.
but what if like you were wearing a hijab? Do you not wear it in class anymore?
No, because here's the thing also about schools in Saudi Arabia. Girls' schools are essentially so boarded up as if you're going into, it's like you're going into a prison and then coming out of prison. There's a person, like a warden outside, to make sure that only girls and only girls that go to this school go in. And then when you go out, you can only go out when school is over, or you have a paper from your parents saying that you can't, a slip from your parents. That's the only time you can go out. And you can only go get into a car that is authorized by your family, either your father or a driver or a brother or a cousin, if that's who's taking you. Like it's like that up until college. If you go to a
Wow.
college in that is regulated by the Ministry of Higher Education, it's like that too. And so you're not allowed to wear pants. That's another thing too. And also girls don't get physical education, but because I went to a private school, we did have physical education, but they made us wear the baggiest clothes.
But that you weren't even with men then.
No, it doesn't matter, because in Saudi Arabia, you just have to be modest. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be around girls or if you're going to be around guys. Is they're trying to tell you that you need to be modest at all times. And in some schools, they don't even allow you to do your eyebrows
Wow.
because it's
Okay.
haram, according to Salafis.
I know a few of my friends in school who didn't do it. They were mostly Sunni, but like there were some Shia people who were like, no, it's makruh, which is not recommended.
I never really heard that with Shia, but with Sunnis, for a long time, they would. So when I first did my eyebrows, I was 16 years old, and I went to class, and it was our religion teacher. God, I freaking hated her. Our religion teacher, and it was fiqh, so it was jurisprudence, right? So she came up to me and my other friend, and we both had just done our eyebrows, and we were super excited. Like, it's the first time we've ever done it, and we were
Yeah.
so happy that we didn't look like with bushy eyebrows and like
Yeah.
we were so happy and excited. And she comes over to us like, you're happy now because of what you've done to your eyebrows, but I swear to you, if you go to hell, you wouldn't even be able to stand the smell of it. Okay. We're
Wow.
16. What the hell?
Like it's did the men were the men allowed to wear shorts?
No, men
Okay.
cannot wear shorts above your knee. And if
Yeah.
you, for example, if you go to a restaurant or you go into any place that is a government building, they would not allow men if they wore
Mhm.
shorts. Sometimes, even if they wore shorts below the knee, they still wouldn't allow it because it's too immodest. Sometimes they just want you to,
I don't
cover
like
up.
it is so weird to me because it's just like the face covering, especially on children, like what and
Oh, I
it's
haven't even gotten to the bad part about what we
oh
went through in school. So, from what I remember, and I remember this both in elementary school and in middle school, it happened in high school. There were other things that happened, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But in in elementary school and middle school, we would have in the morning we would have a lecture sometimes. Sometimes it's like once every quarter or something like that, where they would talk to us about let's see, hellfire. What would happen to us if we didn't pray and we were put in the grave? So they would talk to us about, like, essentially what would happen to us if we die and we're not good Muslims. They would talk a lot about different types of torture in hell, different types of torture in the grave, stories of how this one person that never prayed, and then they wanted to go and bury them, but every time they dug the grave, they saw a snake.
I think I've heard
There were
about it.
so many of these stories. God, every single morning we would get these horror stories about this torturous hellfire. But then when we got closer towards high school, the story is a little bit changed. It's not about hell and heaven and all of that. It was more about dating and the dangers of dating, and how and that love is not real. Only true love only happens like after you get married. That any love that happens before that is only infatuation and it's not real. That if you date somebody, this is all about girls. Like, guys, apparently they don't care. Because guys can do whatever they want and then they can still get married. But for girls, like, hey, if you date somebody, then that guy is never going to trust you because you've already, went against your parents. How can you ever trust you?
Yeah, if you've dated him, that means you'd want to date other people.
I know.
Oh,
How could you?
Oh my God, how could you have a life?
How dare you? You're a woman. You're just supposed to wait until your parents choose a husband for you and just say yes to him.
Hmm. I for the longest time I actually did believe that love only happened after marriage, but
Me too.
but when I was in love and I'm like, well, this seems right to me. Like it's not perfect, but it seems right to me. Like, what does true love even mean? Like it's different every time with every person, with you know, at every stage of your life, and even in that relationship as you grow, it means different things as well. And I
Mhm.
was like, if true love only happens after marriage, is he going to love me more if it's the same person? Like, or like, is it just going to change? Is the marriage just going to like change
The
everything, the
dynamic.
dynamics of your
Yeah.
relationship?
Yeah,
And
enough.
yeah, go on.
I remember like a lot of these, we'd have so many conversations in class about, especially in either religion class or if we had a religious teacher, she would talk about it. My parents also would tell me the same thing. Essentially, like, just don't fall in love because any love that happens before marriage is not real love, only love. The only real love you'll ever feel is after you get married because apparently the blessings of Allah and Ahlul Bayt will make that something, 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 something,
Did you also
something.
believe that all Sunnis weren't married because they didn't recite nikah the right way?
No, 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 no. We never.
Okay.
So in my region, so I'm from a region called Al Ahsa, and my region, even though it has Shia, it's more of a 50-50 region.
Hmm.
So we have Sunnis and we have Shia. And in my region, intermarriage between Shia and Sunni is not uncommon.
Okay.
It happens. They don't hate each other because they've lived alongside each other for so
Mhm.
long. I mean, there are those that hate each other, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
Where I came from, it wasn't a lot of hate. Like we lived really well, like with the Hindus, with the Christians. But then there was a bit of a arm's length to Sunnis.
really?
I dated a Sunni Pakistani,
How
and
dare you?
I know, and my parents are like, "You guys are never gonna get married," and I'm like, I told my dad it's not like I need your permission anyway.
Well, if me in Saudi, I would. And that's the
Yeah,
thing.
I
I
would
had,
too, but I was like, who cares?
I mean, I just continued to say no to every person that they wanted me to marry because even though at a young age, and I think I started realizing this in high school, is that I saw the people around me and their marriages. Everybody around me was married to either a cousin
Mhm.
or somebody within the family that was super close, and like they knew them. So everybody was family
Yeah.
essentially, and everything was arranged. Almost nobody got married because they wanted this person to marry, unless of course there was two cousins that knew each other that wanted to marry each other, which I think was super disgusting. But I've known people that did that. And, whatever. Hey, their choice, their choice, their choice. But I've seen it around me, and I thought, like, I don't want that kind of marriage. It's sad. I don't see the love. I don't see any kind of affection. And I mean, I saw especially how my parents interacted with each other, and I'm like, I don't want that. I want
Yeah.
more. I want to actually feel that the person loves me because I've also seen my uncles with their wives, and some of my uncles like their wives, so I can see that they actually love each other. I can see the relationship that they show some kind of affection, but not what I grew up with. And so in my head, like I don't want to get married the traditional manner. Like I want to meet somebody, fall in love, and marry that way.
Yeah.
And it's been in my mind ever since. And also, I've never been the kind of person that thought marrying a cousin was a good idea, mainly because I thought my cousins were more like my brothers
Yeah. Were you
because they were.
introduced to any as a marriage prospect while you
Oh
were
yeah,
growing
yeah,
up?
yeah. Not when I was growing up. It was more towards the end. Not like I'm still young and alive, but more in my 20s
Okay.
is when it happened. And it was already an ex-Muslim by then.
Yeah, and sorry, so if we after high school, what happened? Like, did you go to university, college,
Yes.
and in
So my
Saudi?
so this goes into my whole journey out of Islam as well, because all of that is connected to each other. So I started questioning Islam essentially back in high school, when I started reading the Quran a lot more in depth, and I realized that it's so against women. And I remember specifically the verse, and it was essentially the 434, the most famous وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ, verse, but essentially the whole verse. It's not just the part about
Yeah,
about the
strike
beating,
her. Yeah.
because who cares about the beating part? Okay, yeah, that's horrible, but essentially you're saying that men are better than women. That's the first part that you're saying. And then the second part you're saying is that men have the authority to discipline their wives, but wives do not have the authority to discipline their husbands. And that was the biggest question I had. That's when I realized that men and women are not treated equally in the religion. And no matter who I asked, and I asked my mother, who was my religious authority at the time, and then I asked, I remember when you were talking to Zahra and she would go like on Khomeini's website or whatever, like because my family was following a Sistani, at the time I would send emails, and no matter what, and like she said, sometimes they send you like one or two quick answers, and that's all I got. Just one or two quick answers is like, oh yeah, because women are weak, because sometimes women forget things, because women are the mothers that will raise the next generation. I'm like, okay, you can still say all of that about the father. Why is it only the mother? So that's how it started. And then I really wanted to be an engineer because I was a smart girl, always got the highest grades, love math, love chemistry, love physics. I'm a STEM girl through and through. And I really wanted to be an engineer. And so there are no engineering schools in Saudi Arabia for women because, we're women. And engineering is a guy's thing. And I really wanted to get into a university abroad. I was thinking either Canada or the United States because it's as far away from my family as possible and as far from Saudi Arabia as possible. Also, freedom.
Yeah.
So I got accepted into university that I did not end up going to because my mother was completely against me going to study abroad on my own. What I did, because of course I'm a girl, that's literally what she said, because I'm a woman and because girls, they're not strong enough, they can't take care of themselves no matter what, men are still, more capable. It's funny because here I am years on my own and I'm 100% dependent. My brothers are still dependent on my parents. So just saying.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with the gender.
I have that too. I mean, I think for me, my dad never believed I was handicapped. It was my mom who was very traditional. And for her, it wasn't about women can't do it, but this is the role of women.
Yes,
They're
that's
carers.
essentially.
They're naturally caring.
And the thing is, my mother is not an ignorant person. My mom is a medical doctor, a very brilliant medical doctor who is really good at what she does. And she's been my inspiration to be a strong woman ever since, like, I've seen her. Like, growing up, I've seen this woman that, went against everybody. Like, she became a doctor when not a lot of women became doctors at her time. She was one of the first people to graduate in Saudi Arabia as a doctor, as a Saudi. She's absolutely brilliant and smart and strong. And I love her management style. Like, I actually, as a manager right now, I sometimes use her management style because she is a good trainer, a good doctor, and a good manager. But she's super religious to the point where I don't know how can she separate that cognitive dissonance? Like, it's just, I remember when she was studying for one of her exams and she was going through, I remember I went over and I was like, so what are you studying right now? And she said, oh, the stages in embryology. And I'm like, should I recite that verse and see if she wants to explain it to me and how it's different from the book that she's reading, or should I just keep quiet and go somewhere else? And this was still when I was Muslim.
And so your mom was studying to be a doctor while you were already born?
Oh, no. She was already a doctor, but she was, this was her subspecialty.
Okay.
She's an ophthalmologist, and then she specialized even more in retina. She's super amazing. Like, I am still impressed by what she does.
That's awesome. And your mom's Saudi Arabian as well?
Yes. My parents, both of them, are Saudi Arabian and cousins. They all have the same last name.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, that makes it easier. She doesn't have to change her last name.
I mean, we don't in Saudi Arabia. In Islam, we don't change our last names when we get married. But I remember when I first came to the United States, and people would ask, oh, yeah, so it's nice that your mom took your dad's last name. Like, oh, no, they already had it before.
Yeah.
She was already that name when she married him.
Yeah.
So that's, so I got accepted into the college, and my mom was completely against me going abroad, and I was pissed off. I was super pissed off because I had already gotten accepted into the government scholarship program, so it was going to be a free ride. But I also applied to the Aramco scholarship program, and it was the first year that it started for women in that year. And I really, really wished, I was hoping that I would get in, because if I had gotten in, then I can study chemical engineering, which is where I wanted to study, and I couldn't go abroad. But my parents were against it. So what I did was I went on a hunger strike, and I didn't talk to them for a whole week. After that week,
were you heartbroken when your mom said
God,
that?
yes.
Given she's a strong woman, and then she says that, and you're like, but I look up to you. Like, why
It
would
doesn't
you
matter. That's the thing. And I mentioned that to her, and I said, like, you go and you go to the UK all the time on your own to study. Why can't I do it? I was like, well, I'm a grown woman. And even me as a grown woman, when I go to the airport on my own, I'm scared. Like, okay, well, you're scared. I'm not. Can I please go? And I kind of did kind of bitchy things to her that I don't want to talk about right now. But I was trying to get her to be angry at me because I was super angry at her. And so anyway, the only thing that worked was the hunger strike. Apparently, no matter how angry your parents get at you, they still don't want you to die. So after a week, my mother came to me and said, if you get accepted into the Aramco program, that's the only way we'll let you go. Got accepted.
Nice.
So I got accepted, went to school, studied chemical engineering. And while I was studying, this was the first time I've ever been to the United States. Everybody asks me the same question. So when you first came to the US, did you feel like culture shock? No, not at all. If anything, I felt like my whole life before that, all of those 17, 18 years when I was in Saudi, that was a culture shock. This felt normal.
Yeah, for me, it was not moving to Australia, it was moving to Malaysia and seeing somebody who, I was 16 at the time, who wouldn't wear a hijab and went to the prayer room and then covered up and then left without wearing it. And I'm like, so you're a Muslim because clearly you're praying that way and you don't wear a hijab? And I was like, how? I didn't know. And like I was just so jealous and I didn't know if I wanted to remove it. And I was like, why? It was just so confusing. And that was the culture shock also, like being in a restaurant that is halal and there's alcohol there. Because I was never allowed to go in Tanzania. A lot of them would just not serve alcohol. My
Well,
dad still would not go.
I never saw alcohol until the United States.
So. Yeah. Wow.
What is this?
I think
never
same.
drank it.
I
Never
think
drank it
same
until
for
I was
me.
21.
Yeah.
Like even when I finally decided that I wanted to try alcohol, I waited until I was 21. I am such a goody two shoes.
I was like that too. I mean, I only drank alcohol like a year after leaving, and then I didn't drink it for 8 months, and then I had a cocktail, and then I didn't drink it for 6 months, and still even now in the lockdown, I've had it twice, and I'm like, just like, yeah, and like even bacon and stuff, it wasn't a majority of like it wasn't a big part of me leaving. I think a lot of it was
women. It's women's rights for me. It's women's rights.
But I am surprised that it was until I guess was it 434 that you realize that women didn't get rights. What about you growing up and your mom telling you that?
The thing is I did see all of that. So some stories that I saw or just some things that I saw growing up was I think,
sorry, I just this is
my
really
culture is the only shock to me. I have to agree with you, Iman. That is 100% true for me.
This
like
was
I
funny.
felt the same thing.
Sorry.
It's all right. So growing up, so after I put on my hijab at I think about 9 years old, before that, before I have to put it on, I was like still 8. I wore shorts, just regular like spandex shorts back in the 90s, if anybody remembers those. Just so dumb, but super comfortable. I wore those and I was like an 8-year-old, 9-year-old girl, super tiny, still skinny. Like I wasn't, didn't have any hips or anything like that. But I remember I wore that and I went downstairs and it was like my cousins, my uncles, my grandparents, my parents, everybody was there. And my grandfather came up to me and said, you shouldn't be wearing these shorts in front of the guys. You've reached a certain age now. You should change. And I remember he said that specifically about my aunt's husband. The thing is, my aunt's husband is the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Not even close to being a predator. So when my dad said that, when my grandfather said that, I felt so gross. And ever since then, I've always felt that my butt needed to be covered because it's too big. My thighs are too big and I need to keep them covered at all times. So I've seen some of those when I was growing up, but I thought it was just normal. Like that's just how it is, you know? It wasn't until like I started, getting on the internet and seeing more things and getting to know other women that are in Saudi that had a lot more freedom than I did. And that's when I started realizing that maybe I should read the Quran a little bit more. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they're wrong. I don't know. And when I reached Surah An-Nisa, that's the one that really got to me.
Yeah. And did you read it in a different Arabic version or
There's
the
only one
Quranic?
Arabic version.
So
There's no other version.
is it not simplified for other Arab readers to get it?
Nope, it's the same Quran. It's as if God Himself brought it to me. So
And you understood that?
it's my first
Okay.
language, and I've been taking it since God knows. I've been reading the Quran ever since I can read.
Yeah, I
I
think it
can
was the
talk,
same.
not even read, because my mother taught me Ayatul Kursi and the
Yeah.
small surah, Surah Al-Fatiha, Al-Ikhlas, and the Ma'awidat when I was young.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been reading the Quran ever since I can talk.
Yeah. I guess for me, it was, yeah, reading the Quran and learning the alphabets and whatnot, but I could never understand Arabic, even though every Saturday they gave me Arabic. I hated Arabic. Hated it so much. I
It's
hate
very
learn.
difficult to understand when it's not the language that you grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, I've forgotten a lot of Gujarati as well, but I guess I was just trying to say, do you know Trevor Noah?
Yes.
So Trevor Noah had said something about living in South Africa and how it was so different where white and black people walked on separate lanes and whatnot. And he's like, I didn't know it was different until I came overseas and I realized how stupid that was. So as a child and even growing up, he was like, oh, this is normal. Oh, we don't have electricity. Yeah, sure. I didn't have electricity in Tanzania. And when I still tell people that there were nights or like for a week we didn't have electricity, you just have to sleep.
Yeah, what
I
else are you
didn't
going to do?
exactly. And I'm like, I didn't know that was different until I came overseas. And I'm like, oh, so fathers cannot talk to their daughters like that? And I'm like, oh, so you're allowed to wear shorts at home in front of your dad? I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't allowed to wear
Yeah.
anything more like it had to be long
Wait,
pants and shorts.
especially like what your mother doesn't make you do things that you don't want to do. Like for me, and this is what I had trouble up until probably this year or last year, is that recognizing that the way I grew up was abusive, because that kind of indoctrination is not normal. That's not normal. You do not grow up being told what you're supposed to say when you're in the grave after you die when you're like 4 or 5 years old. What the hell? Who does that? You don't cover up when you're 8 or 9 years old and tell the girl that it's her fault if anything happens to her. That's just wrong. But then the other part of it is that like I never had a choice in anything. That's the thing. That's the main reason I left. So my part is not just the religious part of it, but what I'm trying to say is that even though the religion itself doesn't say to do that, it does kind of give authority to parents to make their children do things like this. Essentially, because the Quran, for example, says that you cannot say no to your parents. So I can't say no to my parents. Like my mom says I have to go with her to something. I'm like, I'm super tired, don't want to go. I have other things to do. I can't say no. Because if I do say no, it gets into this huge fight that I always lose.
Yeah, it's the emotional guilt after that as well. That like, how could you
It's
make
not
your mother
even,
so upset when
I
she's the one who'll go to
wish,
heaven?
I wish it was just like that. So that's what my father would tell me afterwards, to guilt me into it. But in the end, the answer is always like, well, you don't have your choice, you're going.
Sorry,
So
the answer
even
was?
so, it's like you don't have a choice, you're going.
Yeah.
So even after fighting it, it's like, I have no choice. I still have to go.
Yeah, that's
And
intense.
it's been like that even after I graduated college, even after I started working. I still never had another choice. Oh, your mom was going to a wedding. I was like, okay, great, have fun. Like, oh wait, you're coming with me. Like, why? I don't know this person that's getting married. Why do I need to go? I have other things to do. I have a lot of other things to do. I can read. I can just sit here. I can go to sleep. But the thing is, in my culture, in my family, we all had to be exactly the same. Everybody had to be the exact same religiousness. Everybody has to be the exact same when it comes to culture and how they view everything. And if you were to be invited to something, you have to freaking go. The only time I'm not supposed to go, sometimes my mom, if she doesn't want to go, she makes me go on her behalf because I'm her daughter. And
You
that's how
need
it
to
is in our
show
culture.
appearances.
Yeah, because that's it. It's our culture. Like if I can't go, then my oldest daughter needs to go. And if my dad can't go, then his oldest son has to go. It's ridiculous. But that's how I grew up, essentially never having a choice, never having a say in anything that I do. The only thing that I ever was able to do on my own or get on my own is to be able to study chemical engineering because I fought for that. And when I came to the U.S. and I saw how everything was so different. I still wore the hijab, and God, I was watching the show the other day. I don't know if you. God, it's so stupid. It's 911 Lone Star. It is the most woke show. I don't really suggest anybody watch it, but it's super duper
There are a
woke.
lot of memes about it.
It's so horrible. But one of the girls, one of the actresses, and I actually kind of like her. I like her character, the Muslim girl in the
Mhm.
show. So she's a little bit more outgoing. She's like in your face, and it's kind of reminded me of how I was when I was Muslim, always trying to challenge something, always trying to like be in your face about something, which caused me a lot of trouble with my parents. But who cares? But I liked like I was like that. I was like that. But some of the things that she said when somebody asked her why she wore hijab because she's not very religious is that she said it was something that gave her pride because it gave her it reminded her of who she was. And when I wore hijab in America, it wasn't because I was religious. It was for the same reason because I thought like, hey, I'm Arab, I'm from a Muslim background. I wear it because like this is uh, what I'm proud of, whatever back then. Um, but then as time went by, and it literally was a quarter. it was from September to like January. Come February, I already took off the hijab. And the beginning, when I first took it off, it felt like I was naked. It felt like
Yeah.
everybody was like, can see me. I still wore a hat. I still wore long sleeves. I still covered up until here because I still felt like I needed to cover up because, and I still, and up until let's say 2016. That's how long it was. I didn't wear my size. I wore something bigger because I felt that I needed to wear as baggy clothes as possible and not show off my body.
Yeah, I mean, like I was in Malaysia when I was taking it off, like end of the time, like end of my journey in Malaysia before I moved to Australia. And I even when I was in Australia, it was 3 years later that 3 or 4 years later, that I'd actually worn a dress that showed my knees. Because I still
Wow.
felt so naked and I was still Muslimish, but I still felt so naked. And when I saw it, I was like, is anybody watching me? Are people judging me? Am I like just an object now? So there was a lot of body shaming that I was getting over. There was
Me,
like, it was
me
just like
too.
I'd never taught to love my body. I'd never been taught to take care of it. I'd never been taught what the right bra size was.
Oh God,
We
yeah,
just
that was.
never spoke
It
about it.
was like my mom just be like, "Wear this. It's my size." I'm like, okay, and then I go to a place and they do the measurements. I'm like, that's not even close to your size.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Victoria's
it's not.
Secret was the first time I actually had it measured. I
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay, I'll wear this. I didn't even know
And
anything
then you
about
wear
it.
the bra, and it's like, this is comfortable. How? This entire time I was wearing the wrong bra.
A lot of feminists will disagree with you about comfort in bras because it's a male invention.
I mean, it can be whatever.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. I
I'd
like
actually
it.
I'd actually slept with my bra up until last year because I had never known otherwise. I didn't know it was unhealthy. I didn't know it was like
It
I
makes
just
it just hurts in your
yeah.
chest. Yeah.
Yeah, I was never taught. I could never even sit down with my. I didn't know anything about sex. We just weren't told about it at
Oh
all.
God, girl. So my mother she's very modest,
Mhm.
right? So she doesn't like saying bad words. Like, for example, gay people are just people that do immoral things.
Mhm.
And then when I got older, she just started calling them vile. She's very full of hate. But it's
I think
religion.
she's I guess what is that thing? A result of indoctrination as well
Oh,
and brainwashing.
super. Yes, extremely. But the thing is, like almost all Arabs, no matter even the non-religious ones, even the atheist ones, sometimes are super homophobic because the culture kind of instills that in you to
Yeah.
be super homophobic and be against gay people and just not accept people's sexualities. But I also did not know anything about sex. Not only did I know nothing about sex, I didn't know anything about periods. I got it when I was about 9 or 10 years old, super young, and I didn't know what anything was. My mother just didn't really teach me what it was. She just said, "Oh, this is so you can have babies when you get older. Here, put this in, or put
Yeah.
this on, or whatever, like pads." Like that's what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? Just like, oh, you're not supposed to pray, and you can only but you don't fast, and then after Ramadan you have to make it up, and that's it. Like just the religious part of it. She didn't tell
Yeah.
me
What actually
in depth.
happens?
Who
Especially if she's a
actually did?
doctor.
Yeah, she didn't. I don't know if it's because she felt embarrassed by it. Who did tell me about it? My dad.
Yeah.
It was super awkward sitting there with my dad at like 11 years old as he taught me what periods were.
Yeah, I mean, with me, because I had older sisters, I knew they had gotten their periods. So every Ramadan, when my dad's like, "Oh, have you prayed?" He would ask us every time he came home. He's like, "Have you prayed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, in the bathroom." That means I'm on my period. I did my own prayer, which is like not praying because I spent time in the bathroom, and that's how we would indicate that we're not praying, we're not fasting, and he wouldn't stop questioning it. And it was just his way of also instilling onto the younger kids that I am going to ask you and instilling fear as well because you can't lie. And I am horrible at
Yes.
lying.
Oh, me too.
I am
Super
horrible at
bad.
lying. I would say no. And he's like, why? Go pray, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fine, I'll go pray because I was just so scared. And like, he wasn't abusive to me. It was just, he had so much authority in the house. And I was just like, I don't want to get on your wrong side.
It was very dictatorial and authoritative in my household, and it's not necessarily because of the religion. It's because of the way my parents are. But the religion did help. Did give them that authority, and they used it against us a lot. Especially my mother. My father, not so much. My father was more of the guilter, the guilt tripping guy, or the just listen to me because I'm your father kind of authority. He
Yeah.
loved that authority because he's the father. You should listen
Yeah.
to me. I'm the patriarch.
I think
My
that's also a little more common in Arab families
Oh, very, yes.
than it is in like at least like Indianish families. I mean, it does exist, but in Arab families, a lot more.
Yeah. And later on, I will mention that when I was outed as ex-Muslim, my mother's biggest thing was that I'm an atheist now, and she doesn't like that. My dad's biggest thing was that I wasn't a virgin. He didn't care the part that I wasn't praying and that I didn't believe in the religion. He cared that I am no longer a virgin and that sex is okay with me. That
Oh
was his
wow.
biggest. That was his biggest
That can be
problem.
so hard. Like I remember when I had a boyfriend and I hadn't had sex, and my mom, because I was crying so much after the breakup, and she came up to me and she's like, "Did you lose your virgin?" I'm like, "Ew, mom, no, I'm still so young," and I'm like 22. I'm like, "I'm still so young. What are you saying?"
Yeah, it's it was not very fun. Uh, so so I went to college. Let's go back. See. Let's see. I went to college studying chemical engineering. Started meeting different people. Started questioning. Took off the hijab. But it wasn't until I believe it was 2010 or 2011. It was between 2010 and 2011 is when that's when I started leaving the religion. I was very active on Twitter because of the Arab Spring. I was super into the whole yeah, take down the authority, whatever, and started following Tunisia, Egypt, then Syria happened, and Bahrain, which died really quickly, Libya, all of that. So I joined Twitter for that, and that's also when I got to know that there were other Arab atheists out there. There were so many, and that I can meet them. And so I was questioning religion. I got to know them on Twitter and online and became friends with several of them. I met some of them when I went back to Saudi. I met some of them here in the United States. It's the more I get to know them, like, so it's okay to be an atheist. It's okay to just leave this religion that I don't agree with. So it's been in my mind. I just criticized it. I hated it, but I didn't have the guts to say that I left. Just criticized it all the time. I also felt very bad about it. Like, when it's something that is essentially your whole identity, the only thing you knew, and it was literally the only thing I knew, that I thought this was the truth. And then suddenly you think, wait a second, this could be not the truth. And then when you realize, look, wait, this is not the truth, I can just leave it because it's one of many different stories out there in the world. It was traumatizing to me. I was very depressed because I thought my whole life was a lie. I felt that I lost so much time. My whole childhood had gone away. I wasted it trying to be adherent to this religion that didn't even like me. It was, it broke me a little bit. And I had to go to therapy for a good amount of time. I think it was about a year and a half. During that time when I was in the transitioning period between being a Muslim and not being a Muslim. And my therapist was this ex-Catholic. And I'm very, very grateful to him, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have been able to accept it as well as I did, because the more I talked about how I felt, he understood it because he had gone through it too. And he understood the guilt, because Catholics also go with that guilt part that us Shia go through, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. There's this not only abandoning Islam and Muhammad, it's abandoning the all Ahlul Bayt, it's
Yes.
abandoning Zainab's plight for hijab, it was
Mhm.
abandoning Hussein, it was abandoning Al-Yes.
Exactly.
It was like abandoning like this whole family that fought for Islam.
Yeah,
It
how could
was,
you?
how
He
could you
died
do
for
that?
you.
And I'm
He
like,
died so you can have this religion today.
I still think like there's so many other activists have done a lot more, like dying and have like women's rights and gone to jail, who deserve more credit because they fought for half of
And
humanity.
and I don't know if you've heard this in your communities, but they always told us that Imam Hussein's plight is the worst, in the world. It's the worst massacre. It's the worst tragedy. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure the Armenian genocide was a lot worse. A
Even just reading,
lot.
even just reading about the Holocaust, I'm like,
The
I was never
Holocaust is a
taught
lot
about the
worse.
Holocaust.
Oh no, they
I was
never taught
never
us about
taught.
the Holocaust,
I,
because
w- I was,
they
yeah,
hate the Jews and they hate Israel and they hate anything related to Judaism. And it's like Yehudi is actually considered a curse word there. It's essentially like saying, you're an asshole.
yeah,
It's the same thing.
yeah.
Uh, there's also a lot of racism where I grew up, and unfortunately, Saudis and Gulf Arabs are very well known for that, because they have more money and they have a lot of migrant workers that they treat like crap. And I absolutely hated that growing up, but it is what it is. What else did
I
I
didn't
see?
like that for the longest time because I didn't know where I was from until late last year or early this year, but actually, when I took an ancestry test.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know where I know we spoke Gujarati at home, but my uncle told me that my grandparents were from Oman and they had moved to Zanzibar because that's the earliest they could even remember. And I was like, so am I half Arab? Like, what is happening? Like, who am I? And from my ancestry test, and hopefully I'll make a separate video, I realized a lot of who I was from like 30 to like 54 to 90% was Afghanistan and the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then the other part was West Indian. And then like 3% was probably like 3 to 10% was Kenyan and Tanzanian. So like my mom's Kenyan. So I'm like, that made a lot of sense. It could be some mixing that happened. Because we've been there for like
Yeah.
5, 6
Here's
generations.
So here's the cool part about Oman is that because of where it's at, it was
Mhm.
a major hub of uh, trade, especially when it comes to spices from India.
Mhm.
So a lot of Indians ended up staying in Oman.
Yeah.
So there is so even if you go to Oman and you see some of their dresses, like they wear saris sometimes, they wear
Yeah.
Indian clothes.
A lot of
It's part of
Omanis
their
love
culture.
Bollywood. I
Oh yeah,
love
because
Bollywood. Oh my god.
they're very, very well in. Oh, my family loves Bollywood. The women, they watch Bollywood movies all the time. But because music is haram, and you know how Bollywood movies love their music, we mute them.
Yep. Yep. I feel like you're speaking my story, but in like so many similar ways. And like, I guess what I found from the other two interviews that we did with Little Devil and Zahra was about the distance between Western culture and Islamic culture.
Gosh, and like so listening to Zahra's story kind of resonated with me because it's so much like mine, but hers was in Canada and mine was in Saudi. And
Yeah.
even, I mean, she still had a lot more freedom than I did because she lived in Canada and I lived in Saudi. But still, it's ridiculous how like, but the one thing that's different between me and Zahra is that my family hated them, hated them.
You'd curse.
So
You'd
curse
curse.
Yazid every time they drink water. Allah yil'an Yazid and drink water.
Wow.
So there's a celebration that happens, I think it's on the 14th of Muharram. I'm not really sure exactly.
Yeah.
But they call it Eid al-Zahra. And
Yeah.
it's when people dress up like Omar and do stupid shit because they hate him.
Yeah.
It's such a dumb celebration that they
I
do.
may
But
have
yeah,
part. I may have partook in a play.
So my dad would my dad is one of those guys that like if the only mullahs that he likes or the imams that he likes are those that hate the Sahaba.
Oh wow.
he
Wait,
he especially likes them if they hate the Sahaba.
did you ever hear of Amar Nakshwani?
No.
Okay, he's very well known in the Khoja community, it's the community I'm from. And
Mm.
he's Iraqi Syrian himself, but he is very popular amongst like young Khoja Indianish people, Shias. And he's
Mhm.
like, oh, they're allowed to criticize. Of course they are. Even if they insult them, of course they are. We shouldn't be angry because the Prophet taught us not to be angry and whatnot. And he has this fluffy way of saying, oh, let them criticize us. And it all started because I left and the news reached to him. So I am like a small, tiny girl, and he knows my dad really well. And he's been to my place so many times, and the news reached to him, and that's how they went. Like in this was in Canada, I think. It's like, oh, let them criticize. Well, if they have any legit, let's talk to them about it. And he even asked my dad for my number, and my dad's like, should I give him? And I'm like, no, because I will
No.
disown you. I will disown you. Do not give my number to anyone.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's no having conversations or discussions with religious people. There really isn't. Like whenever they tell you, like, hey, you have questions, how about you talk to this imam? No, it's not going to turn into a manner in which we either agree to disagree or I'm going to change my mind or he's going to change his mind.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to change their mind. He's already coming in knowing he's right and trying to change me. That's not a discussion. That's just him trying to change me.
Even
And
now, 3 years on, being a public activist, like, talk to a scholar, and I'm like, I have no questions.
I'm good.
I am
I'm
good.
good.
I am happy. I don't
Yeah, I
want
don't
to
want
go
this
for a
religion.
debate.
I'm
Like,
good. Like if I wanted the religion, then yeah, I guess I will talk to a scholar about my doubts. But I'm good. I don't like the religion.
yeah.
I don't want to be in it. I'm good.
And I think I lost God before I lost Islam, because like for the longest time, when people go like, can you be good without God? Do you have meaning? And I think we will cover a lot of this in our support corner.
Yes.
But for me, it was more like I think I relied on myself more than I had ever relied on God. Like I never really prayed for my exams. I only prayed so I could get some, like it was meditation kind. That was like
Yeah.
once in a while. But it was also, there was a lot of like me falling out of it. But like for years, I just haven't really prayed 5 times a day. I can't remember one single day where I've prayed 5 times a day for the
Oh,
past
I
10 years.
did. Oh, the
10
past 10
years.
years I haven't. Oh, well, the past 10 years I haven't prayed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What am I
mean,
talking about? It's been
I
10
may have
years
prayed
since I
once.
last prayed.
Yeah.
Well, there's fake praying when I had to in front
Yeah,
of my parents, but
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
not real prayer.
Oh,
Uh,
before we get sidetracked, I really want to know what happened after college, during college, and also if you could
yes.
go a little more in depth on like the naked part of hijab.
Okay. So when I first took off the hijab, I remember it was February, and I still wore hats, still wore long sleeves. It felt still got criticized by my parents a lot because they don't like the way I was dressing. It was too immodest. Um, it felt more like uh, shame. It's not necessarily naked. I just felt like I should be ashamed of showing what I am. It felt like I was betraying my culture, my background, my family, and that's how I felt also when I left the religion. It felt that I was just being a disloyal, just turning my back against my family. So when I went to college and when I finally left the religion, and it's a funny like how I finally decided that hey, I hate this. I don't want to be in this. I don't believe in this. It was after I got drunk, and the only party I've ever been to in college. It was when my graduating, my senior year. Like that's it. Like we finally graduated. Let's go party. And I was wearing a hijab when I went to the party.
Wow.
Because like when I was in so I went to the same school as some of my family friends daughters and sons went to,
Hmm.
so they all knew who I was, and if I didn't wear the hijab they would all like literally tell my parents.
Did
So
they wear
I
the hijab?
Mhm. The
Oh
girls,
wow.
all of them wore hijab, yes. I think there was only one girl that did. No, she still did. We kind of shamed her into wearing it. It's hilarious.
We've all been there.
um she was Kuwaiti, I remember, and she was like one of the. She was she was very gullible. I love her to bits, but she was super super gullible. So it was very easy to trick her into wanting to wear it. So
Yeah.
what happened in the end is like I went to the party, and I was talking to one of the girls, Katie, who I'm still kind of friends with to this day, even though she's in Kazakhstan or whatever, doing oil and gas work. You know how oil and gas is, middle of nowhere for years and nobody. Anyway, she poured me a rum and coke, like my not my first drink, but the first one I ever got drunk out of. And then I had peach schnapps.
Schnapps.
Never gonna have schnapps in my entire life ever again. And I think we took shots or something. I don't know, but I got super drunk. And before I got really, really drunk, before the schnapps, I went into the bathroom and I was like, should I show them my hair? And my hair was longer than this. It was about like till here,
Wow.
super curly, super big. Took it off and opened. Somebody walked by the bathroom, looked at me, big shocked eyes, and went to Katie and was like, "Who the fuck is that person in the bathroom?" So Katie comes over and she's like, "My God, your hair is so gorgeous! Why? No, come out. Let me. All the guys are talking about you." So she pulls me out and like, guys, this is Ghada. Everybody's super drunk. Nobody cares. And that's when and then everybody comes and starts talking to me. It was great. That's the first time I took off my hijab in front of a lot of people that knew me. And also, I proceeded to get super drunk. Couldn't drive, so I had to call somebody to come pick me up, a friend of mine. Drove me back home. Can't remember shit until I woke up the next morning at about 7 a.m. First time, super extremely hungover. My very first time I got drunk. I realized it was 7. Like, oh crap, I didn't pray Fajr. Like, that's
Wow.
the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
So I got up and then I stood up to pray. And as I was just about to say Allahu Akbar, I'm like, I don't even believe in this shit. What am I doing? I don't believe in God. I really didn't. Like, I realized at that point that the main reason I was doing all of the things, the prayer, the fasting, the calling myself a Muslim, I only do that for my mother. I don't do it for anybody else. I do it for my family. And I am more afraid of my family than I am of this God character because first of all, I never saw him, never did anything to me, never punished me. So I don't know who this God guy is. And I was more afraid of my mother because she could punish me right then and there. He can't. And that's how I left religion. And that was, I believe, in June of 2011 or 2010. Can't remember exactly when, but it was a great. I remember how I felt because I just like took off everything and like that's it. Last time I actually prayed.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm guessing that was the first time. That was the date when you actually like declared it to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, before that, I
It
mean,
was,
yeah, it was when I admitted to myself when I finally said, like, yeah, I don't believe in this shit. I'm not doing it.
yeah.
Then that's it. 10 years later. Well, nine
Yeah.
years later, but still.
It's like for me, it was, I think the first time I admitted it to myself was when I told my family about it. Yeah. Messes them. And I'm like, I think I'm agnostic atheist, but I don't believe in Islam. Islam is not the one for me.
No.
But before then, I like just oh no wait, actually 3 months before then, I was having a debate on like gay marriage in Canada because people were so vile and they kept posting Quranic verses, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about religion
Yeah.
right now. It's
Mm-mm.
people, and you don't see how inhumane you're being. Why are you being so horrible to these people? And then I was like, wait, this is not just Muslims being vile. This is Muslims following the Quran. This is
Yeah.
Muslims following their religion. This is Muslims who fail to acknowledge empathy because God told them to.
And
And
even those that try to say that Islam doesn't, the Quran doesn't have anything about, you know, that against homosexuality. And I always bring up the story of Lot, and they always say, well,
yeah,
it doesn't mention homosexuality. It's just because they wanted to rape the angels. Like, Did you not forget the part where it said that they go to men instead of women? Yeah, he had a thing against that part, not just the part where he sent the angels and they wanted to rape them. He just
yeah,
did not like the part where they were doing other men.
yeah. I'm aware of your time. Are you still good to go on for a
Oh
bit?
yeah, I am good. I'm not.
Okay, okay, cool, perfect. I have so many questions. So after that night,
Mhm.
and then you were still in the US. Were you then due to come back to Saudi
Yes, I
Arabia?
had to. Yeah, I
Yeah.
graduated and I went back to Saudi, started working, lived with my parents because that's what I had to do. And that's when I guess my depression got the worst. I mean, I always grew up with depression because of the abuse that I had when I was younger and anxiety and all of that. But it got worse when I went back because I was forced to live a double life, forced to lie every day, forced to pretend that I am a Muslim when I am not, forced to pretend that I like this religion when I don't. Because we've had in work at work we would have some conversations about religion and the prophet and whatnot, and I had to pretend that I liked this guy even though I hated him. And it's still had to go to all the Muharram stuff, all of the Ma'tam stuff. Still had to fast and pretend pray in front of everybody, and I realized at that point, like, I really don't want to be here. And I thought the only way I can escape is through marriage.
Hmm.
So naturally, I started dating the wrong kind of people that I thought would get me out of my household. So they were like Muslim from my hometown or from a neighboring Shia town, has to be Shia and Muslim, has to be from a good family that my family would marry from. And of course, every single time I dated somebody, up they this is not compatible. I can't force somebody to be compatible with me so I can leave my house. And because I wasn't going to let my parents choose my husband for me. What So I dated the wrong kinds of guys, got into all sorts of trouble with my parents, like head to head butting. My mom would tell me to do something. I would be like, nope, don't want to do it. And essentially, it was everything the way I dressed, my hair, because in the Arab culture, curly hair is considered ugly. It's not considered.
Really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Wow. I
So I
mean,
grew. That's
go
one
on.
of the things I grew up. I grew up thinking that I was just ugly and fat because that's what people told me, and I believed it. I believed it.
Yeah, it's
And so imagine when I first came to the United
yeah.
States, and the first time I took off my hijab, and somebody complimented me. I'm like, what? You think I'm pretty? It was the first time. It was very strange.
Yeah, I think I was raised similarly, and I thought this was mostly the Indian culture where if you're fair, you're considered pretty.
Same.
And my
It's the
sister
same
had
thing in Arab.
My sister had curlier hair and all of us had straight hair, and mine were like super silky straight. Like this, there was like really, really straight, even if when I woke up, no knots or
Mhm.
anything. And, I wasn't allowed to grow long hair because my mom's like, you won't be able to take care of it. So I had to protest at the age of 8 or 9. And I'm like, I'm going to start wearing the hijab so at least I get to keep my long hair. But then,
Funny, because in my culture, it was the complete opposite. Long hair is considered very, very, like, for a long time, I was not allowed to cut my hair. But my
yeah.
mom likes short hair, so I was able to cut my hair short. But some of my cousins, some of my girl cousins, had hair so long it reached their butts because their dad was completely against cutting it.
Yeah, I had that after I started growing it. So every time I cut, my dad's like, "Oh my God, the beautiful hair." So I wasn't not allowed to. In the end, they were like, "Do whatever you want."
Hmm.
But in terms of like exotic styling now, like my hair is fine, but my sister has her hair like really bob and then her side shaved, and she's 13. And my dad's like, "Yeah, okay, do whatever you want." Like now he's really
Gosh,
relaxed. He went in India when they went for a medical checkup with my younger sister. They went and got her a tattoo.
what?
That is
Well,
very
again,
new.
but again, Shia don't think that tattoos are haram. Some of them
Now,
do. Some of them say it's makruh, but
yeah.
in general, it's halal.
Yeah, now it is. Before, like even as a dad, he would never allow it. So it was a lot of training where my brother was taking our side. He's like, if you don't let these girls do what they want to do now, they will hide it and do it. So
Yeah, exactly.
if you
You could
want
have,
to be respected, you let them do it now and be their friend and help them.
yeah. I mean, my parents didn't let me do anything, and I did every single thing against it. So I think one of the worst things I've done, well, not the worst things I've done, but the most, I think, petty things I've done is date a guy that was from a Sunni background. He was the first atheist I've ever met. He was the guy that I think I told you about last time when we were talking that we were both atheists. And when I first met him, I'm like, that guy's a skeptic. I need to get to know more. So when he finally told me that he was an atheist, he came close to me and he's like, and I'm like, so am I. And he was like, yeah, I can't tell anybody. I was like, yeah, I know, but you can tell me. Like, we're the only people here. We can talk about this. I was like, yeah, but it's really scary. We can go to jail here. Like, yeah, I know, but it felt really good because he was the complete opposite of what my parents would allow me to date, and he was the first person I've ever dated that was not like dating because I thought that I could marry this person and then get me out of my house. It was just because I wanted to, well, just for the heck of it. And I liked that he also had the very like Saudi look to him that my parents absolutely hate because he was from a Sunni background. They have a different look to them, I guess. I don't know. People, you can tell, I guess, who's Sunni and who's Shia by the way they look and the way they talk, and of course their last name.
Hmm.
It's everybody is well known. Like, oh, that face is this, that face is that, whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that just to piss off my parents. It was great. It was a wonderful,
And
wonderful
how old were
relationship.
you?
I was 23, 24.
Yeah.
Broke up with him when I was 24. And that's the year that I decided to leave. Because imagine having to date somebody in Saudi Arabia and sexually active relationship. And I had to hide it completely from my parents, even if it wasn't sexually active. Like it was a Sunni guy that I was talking to. Bad idea. So I kept it hidden. It gave me so much anxiety every time I went to see him, and of course, every time I had to see him, I have to come up with an elaborate lie of why. And my curfew was around like I think 7 or 8, so like I had to be home super early. So every day I would be like, hey, I'm going to the gym. Gym. I'm actually not going to the gym. I'm going to see my boyfriend, or I'm going to go see my friends. I'm going to go see somebody that I can hang out with. Because even when I was in my 20s, had my job, had my own income, I still was not able to do anything I wanted. It doesn't matter because I'm still a woman and living under my parents' house and my parents' roof. And my dad, I remember, it's not just my dad, both my parents would go through my stuff in my room. They would just go into the room and just open a bunch of closets, a bunch of cabinets, drawers, go through. If they don't like something, they'll take it. If they remember one time I came back from a trip and I had bought like really dumb things that my mom didn't like. I think it was a flask and an ashtray that had Bob Marley on it. And I bought this specifically for one person. It's a girl, one of my friends, and I thought this would be a joke that she would find funny because she's a heavy, heavy smoker. And I thought like the Bob Marley thing it had a Marlboro on it because that's what she also smoked. So I thought it was I don't know, I thought it was a cute gift. I was gonna just give it to her. My mom took it, threw it against the wall and broke it, told me to pick it up and clean it, and told me that this is bullshit and that I'm called me a bunch of names, and that's it. Like she just like I would come back from work, and that's what she would be doing. Why she's home from work too, beyond me. But that's what I would come home to sometimes. And sometimes when she found out that I was taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, because I realized when I was there that I can't continue to be depressed and anxious for a long time because I kept getting panic attacks a lot, and they were not because of how anxious I was about my family finding out that I'm not Muslim anymore, or that I'm sexually active, or that I was showing my hair and not wearing hijab, or stuff that I would post online on Twitter because they were very blasphemous. And I was afraid that they would know all of that, and it caused me so much anxiety. So when my mom and dad found out that I was taking medication, my mom would go through my stuff almost every single day to look for the medication and throw them out.
Wow.
Yes.
What did she want? Like, this is what really surprises me. A lot of medical professionals, if they're Muslims, they still deny mental health and pills.
Yes.
They
And
still
my mother is
deny
one of
it.
them. Denied it to the point where my mom actually told me when she found out that I go to a psychiatrist and I'm taking medication, is that, a good psychiatrist would never prescribe medication. Then I would just go to a therapist. I mean, why would I go to a medical doctor if I didn't want medication? I can just go to a therapist and do talk therapy. But then I also did talk therapy. I had a therapist back in Saudi, and my mom would also hate it that I would go to another person to talk to. She would be like, I'm your mother. No one would ever love you like I do. No one will ever understand you like I do. Why don't you talk to me? I was like, I don't know, because you're the main reason I'm like this.
Exactly.
I can't talk to you.
I tried just yesterday or day before talking to my mom about hijab. She called me, and my partner was next to me, and she wasn't wearing a hijab, so she took her camera away. And I'm like, Mom, he doesn't care. Like, you're fine. And then I messaged her, and I'm like, when I said he doesn't care, I wasn't trying to offend you, and I was trying to be nice, and I was basically trying to say that I understand why we're told to wear hijab, and it's all about lust and attraction. And she actually said, but like, it's not unheard of that a father has raped their daughter. So I'm like, exactly. Well, now a hijab does not help. Like, if that's the case, then we should be wearing hijab all the time. But people get raped anyway. People want to rape. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's not about attraction. Rape is about control. It's almost always. So, like, I have a rape story, unfortunately. Who doesn't? Which is a horrible, horrible thing, unfortunately. Like, almost every girl that I've known has been assaulted in some way or form. The guy that did it to me wasn't because he thought I was attractive or because he just thought that he was entitled to me. It was all about control. It's like, how dare you say no to me? How dare you? You can't say no to me. No one says no to me.
I'm a man.
Exactly.
I mean, the only reason I ever wanted hell to exist, and in my head, I still want to, it was because I realized a lot of men, when they rape women, especially marital rape, they don't realize it's rape.
No,
they
think
know
it's their right. They think it's okay.
And they continue to do it.
And a lot of men equate sex and rape. That's the thing. Like, a lot of the super religious Muslims that come and attack us, when they say and of course you know this as I do, unfortunately, the rape threats that we get, they think that this is the same thing as sex. They think that if they give us these rape threats, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is just sex, the same thing.
You have sex anyway. Like, you have a boyfriend anyway.
So why is it such a big deal if you got raped? You already have sex. No, it's a violation of my body. What the hell?
Exactly.
And I know, and I'm just going to answer this person. Not all men are like that. I am not saying all men. I'm saying some Muslim men.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of even women. I think a
And
lot
also
of
a lot of women are like that too. Like rape apologists come in all sorts of different
yeah.
shades and genders.
I think women also enforce this idea onto men about how they treat women. They enable it. I'm not saying all women, but there are women, especially mother figures, when they're like, a girl that wears hijab should be respected, and then he has sisters, so he's only going to respect that breed. He's only going to respect the women that do it, or he's going to try. And then obviously some men actually apply rationality to all of it. Some men actually go like, hey, hang on, it's not okay to harass any women. And I think
Just like
that's
there
what
are
really
good
gets
people,
me.
there are bad people. I mean, honestly, I hate generalizations, which is why I
Yeah.
said some, because I wasn't like because both of us have had these people come to us and give us rape threats. I know this very well because when I was in Saudi and in active on Twitter, that's what I got. If it's not they want to rape me, they want to rape my mother or my sister. What the heck? Or they want me to go get raped by somebody else.
It's crazy.
Mhm.
I want to know a little more about
How I left Saudi. I want to talk
yeah,
about
how
that.
you left Saudi. I think that is well, one I'm excited about only because when people talk about their flight to freedom, it causes an adrenaline rush to me because I'm like, yes, it's like being in that movie when the girl escapes and you're like, please be safe. And clearly
Okay.
you are now, but I would really like to get into it.
Okay. So, as I said in the very beginning, like I didn't really want to leave. I wanted to stay and I wanted to fight. And I didn't want to be away from my family either. Like I wanted to live a free life, but I couldn't. So what happened was in the beginning of that year, I was diagnosed with some type of skin cancer that was removed surgically. So I didn't need to do any kind of chemotherapy or whatever. It was really good. I just went in, they removed it, everything was good. But made me think more about like my relationships at the time. So I broke up with the guy that I was seeing. And then because I'm a woman engineer in Saudi Arabia, they do not like it when women are confident and assertive. My job was going to shit. And my boss was trying to get me fired. I had like no, even if I stayed and he didn't get me fired, this was going to get really difficult for me to pursue any kind of career while I was still in that company. And my relationship with my parents was getting shittier and shittier by the day because they kept wanting to impose more rules. Because as I grew older, because I'm unmarried, the rules become more stringent. Because like what? Oh, now she's gonna go and find herself a man? No. And then I think the final thing that happened was when my cousin and best friend passed away. He and I knew each other ever since we were born because we were the same age, 3 months apart. He was like my twin brother. He was my everything. Known him since I was a baby, and then all of a sudden he dies, and that was what broke me. I think that was the one thing that made me realize I cannot stay here. I don't want to. That's the only person, or I don't want to live. It was both one of the two. I still have my journal from the time, and I read it from time to time, and it had descriptions of what I want to do if I was 30 years old and I still was living in Saudi. And I wrote down that I wanted to did not if I was 30 years old, still living in Saudi and single, that I was going to kill myself because I was not. I there was no way that I was going to be a 30-plus-year-old woman that's single in Saudi. I was going to kill myself. There's no way I want to because there would be no freedom at all for me, and everybody would be looking down on me, and I did not want that because I was still adamant on choosing my person. I was not going to let, and I was not going to be. I was not going to settle for whatever just to get out of the house. And it was towards the end of the year, so it was probably September or October, and I was extremely depressed. And I wrote down, instead of waiting until 30 to kill myself, I wrote my suicide note that day. And I went back home. I had some pills from when I was in surgery afterwards, took them because I wanted to die. But I still woke up. Didn't have to go to the hospital or anything. I didn't take enough, unfortunately. Oh, unfortunately, whatever. It worked. It did not work. It got me out, essentially got me out.
Unfortunately, I'm alive.
Unfortunately, here I am, 6 years later. God damn it.
Well, we're glad. Well, I am. I can't, like, I could go talk to you for hours. I'm like, I can't, like, we've been talking for so long.
I know, but let me.
Sorry,
So
go
what
ahead.
happened after when I woke up is I realized that I didn't. If I were killing myself right now, it means that I have nothing to lose. I really didn't. So I decided that this is it. I am going to leave the country. I am not staying here. My first option was Canada, and I had booked my ticket. I finished. I did all my paperwork to go, and all I was waiting on the visa. Did not get the visa.
What visa were you applying for?
To go to it was just a visitor, so I can go and
Mhm.
apply for asylum when I got there, but
Mhm.
they never gave it to me. So I'm like, God damn it! So the second one was Australia because I thought I knew another girl that went to Australia and she was able to get her residency there. So I thought I'd do the same thing. Got freaked out the day before, canceled the flight.
Ooh.
But then my father, towards the middle of December, told me that if I don't start acting more, I don't know, modest
Obedient.
or obedient. Yes, thank you. If I didn't start becoming more obedient, then he will yank me out of work and put me on house arrest. And the thing is, with the male guardian system, that
He
is
can do
totally
that.
okay. He can
Can
do
do
that.
that.
So I got really scared and I didn't know what to do. So the week before that Monday that I left, I booked the ticket to the US. I already had a visa. I knew people that worked on the causeway in Bahrain. And it just kind of went through one night on December 30th at like 12 midnight time. I left my house in Saudi Arabia, went to Bahrain, met a friend of mine who had my suitcase. I got on a plane and I came here to the US. A few months later, I applied for asylum. When I first got here, I didn't really know anybody. I rented a room from someone that I didn't really like that kicked me out after a year and a half. Then I was a little bit homeless for a while.
Wow.
Then I lived in a house who was owned by a guy that turned out to be a convicted murderer and had served 25 years for murder in a federal prison. Turned out not the worst guy that lived in that house. I lived with another person in that house that stole my food, my wine, and my towel. A used towel, which is disgusting. So that happened
Well,
to
he
me.
needed that towel, looks like it. So
Uh,
what year was this that you got to the US seeking asylum? Asylum.
the day I left Saudi was December 30th, 2014. The
Mhm.
day the day they received my full application because they returned it to me the first time around because it wasn't complete
Oh.
was on May 22nd of
Mhm.
2015. I got my first work authorization in December
Mhm.
of 2015. My first minimum wage job was in January, and I worked it until April. And then my first real job was in August. My first engineering job was in August, and it was the best feeling ever when I first got it. Like,
Yeah.
yes!
Nice.
And
And
that's so my asylum. When I applied for it, the way it happens is that you submit your paperwork and then you wait for the interview.
mhm.
And if you don't get your interview in 150 days, then you can go ahead and apply for work authorization so you can work while you're waiting for your
Mhm.
decision. And so that's what I did. That's why I have my I didn't get my work authorization until the end of 2015. In 2016, in November, was my asylum interview. And if anybody has ever seen that weird CNN interview where they were talking about girls, that was back in 2016, I think, when they aired it. You can see me getting my asylum answer at that. It was the most emotional day of my life when the lady was like, "Congratulations, you have been admitted to the United States on asylum," and I started crying right then. It was
Oh.
the it was amazing, and it was captured by CNN. So I'm very happy that
Oh, you have to share it with us.
I'll. It's on YouTube somewhere because when
Yeah.
it went viral, and even though I was my face wasn't showing, and I went by Arwa, the girl, that's the name they chose for me for the article. Everybody in my family knew it was me. Everybody. And it's
Wow.
hilarious because this the men that knew who I was, and it's the men that knew it was me because of my hair.
Oh, wow.
Like, how do you know my hair, guys? How do you know? Have you been staring?
Love it.
That, yeah.
Like,
And gosh, it's the best feeling in the world. I remember.
and how do you feel now?
Well, right now I have a green card, finally. So I am a
Okay.
permanent resident of the United States of America. I have a better job. I have a great boyfriend. I have a great dog who is now just laying down on the. Oh, he looks so cute. Anyway, um, I guess the first thing that made me feel it was the first time I felt safe, I would say, is when I found out that I'm not going back to Saudi. Because the first thing that came, and I didn't mention this, but when I first came to the United States, that first year, all I got was threats from my family, from people in Saudi, from uh, cousins, from fucking everybody. Like it's just on Twitter, I had to delete my Twitter because of it. I deleted my old Facebook. I changed my email because I got harassed so much. And to this day, I haven't really talked to my mom and dad, like by phone. My dad through email. My mom still sends me either threats or curses or whatever it is that she wants to show me.
5 years on?
She has not stopped.
Wow. Does she watch any of your
My dad
content?
is more. So my dad is more of a, are you okay? Do you need money? Or and now since the pandemic started, just conspiracy theories. That's my
Wow.
dad and I. Even when I was in Saudi, all we did was talk about science. And here's the thing about my dad, and I'm surprised. So my dad loved knowledge, and he loved reading, and he was one of the most avid readers I knew. He knew so much. He was the one that introduced me to space, and like when he found out that I liked astronomy and cosmology, he gave me a book that he took when he was in school, and I started reading it. And to answer Mr. Max Musterman, yes, my mom likes to curse Yazid every time she drinks water, and my whole family too.
I do
That's
have
what
a
they
few
do.
questions for you, and as we go, I feel like it'll expand. This was when you were
Mhm.
first talking about the kids covering their face.
Yes,
Did
I
Ghada wear
did.
all black during this time?
Yes, I wonder. I think I have pictures that I could
Oh,
send. I'll send them to you, and you can post them later.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have pictures of me in the whole black
Oh,
thing. It was. What else do we have? Questions. I think I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was saying before I started because I that question about Yazid. It's just hilarious because my whole family is like that.
yeah. It's my family. Like little I think I've seen cursing Aisha and
Oh
Ali's
yeah, they don't
mother.
like
And
her.
yeah,
My mom, so in Arabic, because they like to give like small nicknames to people just to to make to belittle them. So they always called her Awaisha, Aisha, Awaisha. If anybody knows Saudi Arabic, they would understand what I'm saying. It's dumb. It's so stupid. But yeah, that's my family. And the other what I
sorry.
there was a sorry no, so when I went into the interview for asylum. I think it was about 2 hours long, 2.5 hours long, where they ask you essentially everything. And I based it on two things: being an apostate, obviously, number one, and number two, being an apostate woman in Saudi Arabia. I used
Wow.
the legal guardian system because the main issue is not just that I'm an apostate, is that I'm a woman apostate. So it's not like I can just leave my house and go get my own apartment as a guy. I can't. As an apostate woman, or as a woman that wants to escape abuse in her own household. I have the shelter in Saudi Arabia. That's just like a jail, essentially a jail.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
I
If you
can't
don't
go
want
to that one.
if you don't want to live with your family, you essentially go to jail, and that's where
Yeah,
you are. You can't
yeah. The
leave.
shelters the shelters are like jails. They treat women like essentially prisoners because they're only allowed to go out during certain times with a chaperone essentially. Um, it's like I couldn't do that. I couldn't. So that's the main issue was that the apostasy and being a woman, and that's what I based off everything out of. And I remember how extremely disconnected I was during the interview. At the beginning, I cried my eyes out, like the very beginning when we were talking, and he was like giving me the like put your right hand up, and do you swear to say the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And I'm like, yeah. And then I started crying. But after that, there was no crying. It was very emotional, but I felt so numb when I was describing it. And I think I had to be numb so I can describe like the details because they ask you about details too. And some of the stories, like you try to push as far away from your head as possible because you don't want to remember this small part or it's too traumatic. And I had to go through some of those because those were evidence that if I do return, I won't have my freedom or I would be killed.
Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, um, I think a lot of times, when people are like, "Oh, so tell me about your story," and I'm like, "Where do I start?"
Exactly.
Obviously,
I don't know where to start. And it gets my boyfriend isn't here, so I can talk about it. So when I first met him, and then we talked about it since then. I don't mind talking about my story. I don't mind telling the story, but there is a time and place for it. So
yeah,
like a Christmas party, definitely
not.
not the time to talk about this.
Yeah,
So the first time when I met some of my boyfriend's friends, he not just in Christmas party, like in general, he doesn't tell them exactly like my story, and he wants me to tell it because he's so proud of me, and I can tell that he is. Like, look at her, like she made herself. Look at what she did, what she accomplished, and I know he's just trying to show me off, but it's emotionally draining to think and remember those things. It's emotionally draining to it's good that this is like in the morning, so I have the rest of the day to go and make up. But and I know I make jokes about it and I laugh because that's the only thing I know that would help me. Because if I
yeah,
don't joke about it, it would kill me. It's
yeah,
I haven't been around my I don't have a family essentially. I don't have anybody to fall back on. It's just me.
yeah. I was actually discussing this with my partner, and I was like, "Oh, well, you have your family here. I had to move all my stuff from Australia to the UK because I don't have family there. And even then, I have nothing in Tanzania. And my family and I have good ties, but like, there's no point. I'm never going to go there. Like, I can't even visit anymore because I've said things about the president, and I just can't go there anymore, but they'll come visit me. At the same time, it's really hard, not just as a woman, but as a person living overseas, and you have no family, and you don't even have that strong ties to your family. Your emotional connection to what you were told that will be your forever and always there for you, that doesn't exist
No,
because you disbelief. A
and not
small thing
only
like that.
and it's not just that. It's not to be just because what's the word that I'm looking for? It's not just that you don't have that backing, it's that they want you to know that you don't have that backing. Like your
Mm,
family is actively trying to tell you that the reason you don't have this backing is because you don't believe in the same thing we do. If you do, then maybe you'll have that back.
Yeah.
But the thing is with and we can take questions after this, but I remember my mom uh, would always say, like, yes, of course, I love the Prophet, I love Ahlul Bayt a lot more than you, and I am telling you this for your own good.
Why would you say that?
If I know.
Thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how hard it is. And like you said, sometimes laughing is the only therapy that we have. It is your story, it is who you are, and it is you living with it. And it's really hard for everybody else to engage in it. And then there's a lot of emotional draining that will happen after this and while doing this.
But I've noticed, and the reason I wanted to do this again is part of my therapy with that I've started recently. And when we go on support corner, I
Mhm.
will talk more about it.
Yeah,
Trauma therapy, my goodness, is it so helpful? It is
yeah.
extremely helpful. And as part of it, I want to put either in writing, because I didn't talk about the small abusive things in here,
Mhm,
because those are a little too personal for me.
mhm.
And those would definitely drain me if I do mention them and if I
Yeah,
do think about them. But I do want to put them on paper so I can finally be exposed to it again
yeah,
and slowly let it get out of my system, essentially.
yeah. It is. Yeah, we should definitely revisit that. I'm guessing like a few weeks from now, because I think you'll have a bit more knowledge into like how that affected you and
Mhm.
why you'd recommend other people to do it as well.
Somebody's
I
asking me about scars on my left arm. In these, yeah, I bake,
That was me today,
so I have more here.
and then I like how we're showing our baking scars, and then like two
And
here,
this one too.
two
Yeah, we
here.
bake. I love baking.
I was making
If you,
crepes today, and I was like,
yeah, girl,
ah, it was fun. But
I
I have
make lots of
questions from
bread.
the top, so I'm going
Let's
to
do
start
it.
doing that.
Queen Slay. I know my username. But I want to ask a question. I'm a 19-year-old girl thinking of leaving. I'm assuming my very strict family. I've been forced to wear hijab for 8 years now. That's the question.
And then it goes down to
But I love my parents and want to ask, is it worth it? 100%. The thing is with you, if your parents are not as abusive as mine, you might not feel the same way. But because of the way I grew up, this was totally, even though I love my parents, I don't hate them at all. I love them. And I really, really wish that if they ever do see this, that maybe they contact me and let's try to make this work. But I still think that what I did was worth it. I am much happier now than I was when I lived there. Even when I was homeless, and I mentioned that to you, like I was homeless and I was like doing food delivery. And as I was driving around in the city, I realized like I'm happy. Yeah, I'm barely making any money, like maybe $5 per delivery, and maybe I'll get 3 deliveries in one day. But still, that's great. I am free. I can do whatever I want. It was 100% worth, and yes, I am very much happier.
um I think this was around the time where we said unfortunately your life.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
maybe
right now
before that.
yeah. It was. I was making a joke about it because like I'm trying so hard not to go back to that kind of thinking because sometimes I find myself going back there.
Yeah. I have the
Oh
ability
God,
to.
no! I did not practice taqiyya. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, neither have I. No.
Mm-mm.
I guess for me, like when I was raised as a Shia, there were things that I would disagree with, like muta, which is temporary marriage, and
Me
then I'll
too.
go like, I like the Sunni version of it, and then I never called myself a Shia Muslim after the age of 16. I always said
Hmm.
I'm a Muslim, and they're like Shia or Sunni, and I'm like my parents are Shias, but I have like adopted things that I like from both, and I've made my you know uh pick and choose.
You know what's funny though? I still sort of identify as a Shia, but more on an ethnic level than on a
Mhm.
religious level.
Yeah.
Because as a Saudi, as a Gulf Arab, and a Saudi Arab in that is also Shia, we are an ethnic group that is discriminated against actively by the government. And another thing, and this is something that is very, very, very close to my heart, is the plight of the Shia in the Middle East, not just the Middle East, in the Gulf region, because we are treated like crap. Nobody cares about us. Not Saudi, not our countries, and not Iran either. We are used as pawns only by Iran. Like, they think that we're going to just sacrifice ourselves for them. Nope.
Yeah.
And Saudi doesn't like us because they think that we're loyal to Iran. And of course, Qatar.
Yeah. I have another question, which I don't know.
I really don't know. Maybe I knew girls that bleached their mustache.
Yeah. We threaded it or bleached the sides, and now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of. I mean, my mom and I never really cared that much about the mustache hair because we weren't very hairy up here. So
Yeah. I guess because I had like being Indian and then I don't know, like other genes. I just went for laser in Australia, which was cheaper.
Oh, girl, I went through laser my whole body. I'm Arab.
Yeah. I'm so glad it's over.
Me too. I am not married now, but I have a boyfriend. He's great.
I like how somebody asked, "Is my lower lip wounded?" And I'm like, "Nope,
Yes, that's a wound. Yes, guys, that's a wound.
it's a lip piercing, and no, it wasn't painful at all. I was actually one of my fun piercings. I had one up here. I think you can still see that scar.
I had one too. I wonder if you can see mine. No, you cannot. It was long.
There's a dot.
That's where it was.
Mhm.
I used to have one too back in college.
I am trying to scroll through a lot of the questions. Speak up. Racist within Muslim communities. This.
I will 100. I always do. And the thing is, I mean, I don't know I don't know the Muslim communities here in the United States because I try to stay away from them. But when I was in Saudi, the only people I knew were obviously my family and the people around me who were very racist. And no matter what I said, they just didn't listen.
Yeah, I mean, with us as well, we're like, oh, don't be like the Arabs.
Don't be Indian. Like, what the hell? What does that even mean?
And I come from like Tanzania, so East Africa, and I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but like Africans are considered, like, all our maids are Africans because of the status, that people have in the country. And that would be the same in Saudi Arabia, where I think your maids and servants would not be Arabs. Were they Filipino?
They're Filipino, Indonesian, Sri Lankan. Towards the end, they started also bringing East Africans, Ethiopian women. And I remember this just shows you like how the community, like, it's because in Saudi Arabia, like, it's the slavery didn't become banned until the 1960s. So there were still remnants of slavery still, like when people were born in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And one of my cousins was trying to say that she wanted to get literally a slave. She wanted to buy a woman from Ethiopia and bring her to Saudi as her slave. And she thought that this was a good idea.
Wow. We have salaries for that.
Yeah, she didn't want to pay her salary.
That's
she said
crazy.
That, I'm going to give her a home and food and everything. Yeah, that's still very inhumane of you.
Yeah. I mean, we have maids, and I think every Sunday they get more money, I guess weekly money, if you're like, go treat your kids, and we pay their.
Gosh, I really wish we had that. In Saudi, they never have a day off. They don't have any time off.
Wow. I mean, they're live-in nannies and chefs and maids, right?
Yeah, but it's essentially, gosh, it's bad. It's really, I don't know. It just makes me feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I go back home and I'm not allowed to pick up my own plate from the table, and I'm like, I'm not used to this.
And when I lived there, I remember, like, I would be done finishing, I would cook something, and then I would go and wash it, and then the maid would be like, I'll do it. I'm like, you're older, you're old as my mom. It's weird. I don't want you to do this.
I know we have a chef at home that my dad trained for like the past 30 years since before I was born. And they work together and they'll like he knows how to cook everything my dad can cook.
Hmm.
So sometimes if they're cooking gigs, my dad's like, "Oh, you go take this one." And he gets like paid a lot more. But like I'm like, he's still old. You can't just
Yeah,
expect him to have food that's for like 300 people, and that's like
I
their pot
know.
is like that big. It's like
I
really big on
know.
their heads going down, and I'm like, Dad, you need to like. I think it's also because he's a man, and um, I don't know. Like
Could
when
be.
when I found out that his wife died, I cried, and I'm like, why? I'm like, I'm so attached to him. Because, like, for me, I grew up with him.
Hmm.
And I remember when my baby sister, because she was born after like 14 years, and she learned how to swear. And she started swearing at everybody, including him. And I was more upset that she swore at him because I think at that point she was utilizing her power,
Yeah.
one being a little one, but also like, but they're Africans. And I'm like, you didn't learn that from me. Because I am like the opposite. I think she learned that from my parents, which I'm trying to change slowly, but it's a journey. Do a lot of Muslims and ex-Muslim women suffer from depression and or anxiety?
At least I can't answer for everybody,
Yeah.
obviously, but from the people that I know, yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, I would.
Some women are super happy. Some women
Yeah.
have absolutely nope, that's great. Islam is perfect for them. That's what they want, and it doesn't
Mhm.
really give them any kind of anxiety or depression. But from what I've seen, especially, and it's essentially because of how they are treated, whether
Mhm.
Muslim or ex-Muslim, it's not just because of the religion. Because if it was just because of the religion, the Muslims wouldn't really be like the ex-Muslims in the way they were treated. But it's
Yeah.
because we're women.
Yeah. So the first time I found out about anxiety, like when I had anxiety, and I'm like, there has to be some link to genetics. And I remember my mom used to get heart pain and chest pain and would take her to the doctor because we thought it was a heart attack. And they're like, no, nothing. And nobody told her it was a panic attack. Nobody
Yeah,
told her because like we've had
it
like
feels the same. It feels like your whole body is closing in on itself. You feel like the whole world around you is closing in on yours. You can't breathe, and you feel like your mind is racing so hard, and at the same time, you can't think because your mind is stuck in fight or flight.
yeah. It's yeah, I would think a lot of Muslims in general don't like talking about it, let alone men, because that would be another topic.
Yes, and it doesn't help that the communities that we
Yeah,
come from don't at all care about mental health.
yeah. And I think this is a related question as well, a related statement.
I've had that when I was. I think the first time I told my parents and or somebody that I was somebody in my family that I was depressed, they just told me to go read the Quran, and the reason that I feel this way is because I'm away from God. Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, my mom said, "Why don't you pray?" And I was already an atheist, and I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'm gonna play it in my room." It makes no difference to me, mom. None of it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like she thought it was like magic. It would just like help.
Same with my parents.
There is this.
In your estimation, what percentage of Saudi girls would flee if they could? God, I don't know. And and maybe and this is okay. What I'm going to say next is probably a little. I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I don't believe that everybody should be escaping. If you are capable of escaping, escape. But if you're not, you shouldn't. It's really not easy. You will be taken advantage of when you come
Yeah.
here, and it's extremely. If you are not ready to do to whether financially or mentally, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. It is. I feel like a lot of people take advantage of vulnerable girls in wherever, especially if I remember um, there are some ex-Muslims that I've tried talking to women that've dated white men and they could be non-religious or whatnot, and they think because they're Muslim women they're submissive. So they were quite assaulted or abused and they didn't even realize it for a while. And they're like, hang on,
And
this
it's not
isn't
just
okay.
and here's the thing, it's not just because they are Arab women that they think that they're going to be vulnerable. It's because you are unfortunately vulnerable as an immigrant when you come to the when you
Yeah.
come to a different country. you won't always meet people that want to help. You unfortunately might meet somebody that says that they want to help. And I've known a girl that has gone from one guy to the other thinking that they are only trying to help her, but then she realizes that they are asking her to live with them, but for, favors, essentially, like sexual
Yeah.
favors. And then she's like, can you believe that this is what they're doing?
Yeah, it is unfortunately true. Yeah.
Yes, it was on grounds of apostasy.
I am finding, does your mom curse you? Yeah, we've answered that. Yeah.
Do you get upset at people in the West born and raised in freedom who talk? Oh, yeah. Because Islamophobia is such a made up thing. And even if you are afraid of Islam, so what? I'm afraid of it.
Yeah. I
And
think it's a lot
I
of,
used to get a lot more upset. Sorry, I didn't want I used to get a lot more upset about it. Now I just dismiss it. Like whenever somebody says Islamophobia, like, yeah, dismiss it.
how long were you homeless?
It was a week because I found the murderer. He was also
Yeah.
very cheap to live with. So
Wait, you found that he was a murderer?
Mhm. I found after meeting the person and liking the place and wanting to move in, and then I was like, let me Google this guy. And he spent 25 years in jail for murdering a postal office worker.
Okay. I don't know how to respond.
Ridiculous religion, just like every other religion, like Christianity, like Judaism, like Islam, Hinduism is not this, it's just the same thing.
I like how this person is like, oh, have you considered Hinduism, female gods? No, all gods are ridiculous to me. I'm an
Yeah, female,
anti-theist.
male, non-gendered. It's just
Yeah.
there are no gods. What ex-Muslims do you think would make good candidates for political office? I would love to see Mohammed Saeed as somebody in political office. I would love to. I love that guy.
For Muhammad Said, oh my God, we should tell him about it.
I love him. He speaks, the way he speaks is so diplomatic that I would vote. I mean, I love the guy and I know him personally and I think
Yeah.
he's great. I would vote for him. Is Shia Islam more logical than Sunni Islam? I don't know, man. Is astrology more logical than tarot card reading? Because that's how it sounds to me. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound like that's literally what it sounds to me. Both are not logical. Both are still religion. Wilaya, khilafa. I mean, same.
Yeah.
Wilaya is like if you are part of a monarchy, and I guess, and a khilafa is if you were to choose a person from
Yeah.
among you. How bad is health, especially mental health, ignorance, or arrogance, especially pertaining to women? But are you if you mean like Saudi, um, mental health over there is really horrible. Like in this, and I use a story of when I was going to a psychiatrist slash therapist when I used mental health facilities in Saudi. The hospital that I went to, my dad, when I first came here, my parents went over to ask, demanding that they show them, my file. And both my doctor and my therapist both said no, because obviously confidentiality and that they would lose their licenses if they were to do that. So my dad went above their heads and went to the head of the mental health department, the head of psychiatry, the chief doctor, and he was a friend of he's from the same community, like a Shia community as everybody else, so he knew him. And he showed my dad my file. And what I did afterwards was because the hospital was part of Johns Hopkins joint ventures. So I called Johns Hopkins and filed a suit against, not filed a suit, but complained, and he got fired and lost his
Wow.
license because he
Oh,
deserved it.
yeah. I agree. We're just taking the last two questions now.
What do you want to do in life after gaining your freedom? I want to live. I have been, since I've gained my freedom, I've been on so many adventures, hiking, traveling. I got myself a dog because that's what I wanted to do. I'm gonna hopefully, if things get better after the pandemic, I can maybe buy a house if I still have a job. Um, yeah, I love it. Like I can do whatever I want.
There's one last question. I feel like a lot of people, when asked, "Do you regret leaving it?" or "What's that first word that comes to your mind after having left it?" It's always freedom.
Always,
Always
100%.
freedom.
I love it. Don't regret it. No. Mm.
Yeah.
The Saturn reforms by the Prince genuine? Highly doubt it. It's all economic. It's because if it was genuine, he wouldn't be jailing everybody that talks badly about it or criticizes it.
Yeah, but I guess I wanted to go through briefly with you the male guardianship laws. Now that they have removed it, I still feel like, well, one, it existed for so long. And yes, women got the right to vote in like I think about 200 years ago, but at the same time, we're in a place where we have almost equal rights or equal opportunities in the West. Not that a lot of occupation or a lot of things aren't stigmatized, but in Saudi Arabia, given the male guardianship law was just, um, I guess, lifted off, I still feel like the attitudes remain the same around
Oh
the
yeah,
people.
because I mean they didn't lift it all; they relaxed them so women can work without the guardian system. I guess they can travel without the guardian approval. But marriage, I think, if you're a single woman and you've never been married before, I'm pretty sure because it's Islamic, like your dad has to agree to it.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other parts. I'm not very familiar with what they relaxed exactly,
Hmm.
other than the travel and work.
Hmm.
But back when I was around there, it was everything. Like I couldn't work without my dad signing. I couldn't travel without my dad signing that I can travel. I couldn't go to school without my dad signing for it. Like he had to sign for freaking everything.
Yeah, wow. I also think that the laws are they'll let your dad know where you are if they don't ask.
That was crappy because my dad knew it. Oh yes, I am still in ExMNA, and I'm still in the like I put together hangouts and stuff like that and meetups.
Nice. I do that. Well, not anymore because I was in the Australian one, not XMNA, but I was like, even if I'm in the UK, I'm still gonna arrange everything for you. I'm gonna book it, and I would call Australia from the UK, and I'm like, is this available? Okay, can we do this? And I'm like, no, I don't have the time.
I
Um,
know.
we've gone past two
2 hours.
hours, and it
Whew.
was great. It would be lovely to talk more about some of the questions that we've had in depth in our speakers corner. So sorry, speakers corner,
Support
just
corner.
support corner.
Oh, we're in
Uh,
the UK.
yeah. Um, and it would be really, really nice that if you guys had any questions to post it up on the Faithless Hijabi website, which we'll answer in support corner because we'll make them into topics. But thank you so much, Ghada. I feel like anybody like after this, anybody goes like, "Oh, but who is she?" and she's amazing, and I'm like, "Yes, go see her story," and we'll point them to
Here.
this link. Yes, and Ghada is also available if you have any questions on Facebook. I have tagged her Facebook. And
On Instagram, she will tag me as well.
yeah, I have a question. There was one question that I asked everyone. If you could tell younger Ghada or anybody younger an advice, what would it be?
Always be true to who you are. If you are true to yourself, it'll make things a lot easier for you later on. It'll it'll help you realize what you want to do. If I believed in myself back then instead of trying to pretend to be somebody that I wasn't, I think it would have helped me a great deal.
Yeah, yeah,
This is mainly about mental health essentially. Like I wish I was more true to myself back then.
yeah. That's a good advice. I guess we're all learning as we grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to go, and this has been amazing. Can you stay on? I'm going to end the Live
Yes.
broadcast. Perfect. Bye, everyone. If you have any comments, again, the website, Faithless Hijabi website under video series. And this will reduce down to weekly and not 5 in a week. I've just been doing it because I want to make the most of lockdown and I was unemployed and I'm like, I'm just going to do everything. But I start work next week. So this has been good. And hopefully we'll keep doing it with many other people. And it's not only women's. If you have somebody that you would like to have on this interview kind of thing, we're mostly going to talk to ex-Muslims, but we have separate corners for different ones, for different topics as well. Let us know. And anything on Support Corner, let us know. Support Corner is on the same channel in a different playlist or different series of the channel. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.